You are listening to the award-winning The Young Jurks with Mike Crawford.
Just take one hit. Don't you want to be cool?
Gather round everyone. The show's about to begin.
Turn on, tune in, drop out, this show's amazing. It's Super Lemon Haze, you know them boys always blazing. Put one in the air, fill your glass and get to raising. Kirkman praising, school flag waving. Chopping up the topics as they're choking on some chronic. Scott and Eric breaking it down like 21st century prophets. Eyes glazed and minds dazed, it's knowledge they convey. Roll up and consume the Super Lemon Haze.
Super Lemon Haze.
Going to ask you several questions.
Super Lemon Haze.
How do you feel?
I feel like a slice of butter melting on top of a big old pile of flapjacks. Yeah.
Yeah. That intro still gets me. I don't know.
I like
that
it.
one. I worked on that one for a long time, and we ran it through the first like 30 episodes, and even though it's down, I'm down one co-host. Scott still mentioned in that intro. I still think it's fire, so I'm gonna run with it as long as I can.
I gotta say, when it's on the menu, I always get the Super Lemon Haze now.
Oh,
I
yeah?
think you've influenced me, man. Like, I love the lemon haze. I love it.
What do you like about it?
I just
What do
had
you
it
like
like
about
last time I went to my guy.
Yeah. What do you like about it?
I like the lemon.
The
I also get this tangerine, the tangerine
Lemonine?
mints. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good. I'm packing a bowl right now. I know you had a chance to smoke something before we started the show, but I have not. So I'm trying to catch up a little bit. I also have some brown stuff. Just trying to catch up a little bit with my household, and then just something to wash it down with.
Very nice. I have water.
That's good. I'm gonna have to hydrate plenty after this, but
I walk
Thursday,
dogs all day, so it's like,
yeah.
if it's not coffee, it's water.
How's that business going for you?
It's been
that working
good.
out well?
It's starting
Yeah.
to get a little slower, actually, which I'm kind of freaking out, like, because it hasn't been slow in like 2.5. It's like COVID hit us hard in the beginning, and then it just came roaring back, and it's just been but this is our dead season. We didn't have a dead
I was
season
gonna
last
say.
year. Summertime, it's kind of slows down a little bit for your regular walks, but last year it didn't. Yeah.
I was
Once the
gonna ask you about that.
vaccines came out, everyone went crazy for travel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you do boarding too, or you just doing walking?
We do a little bit. It's just two of us, and sometimes, like, my girlfriend right now is out. She's dog sitting at someone's house, and
Gotcha.
I could actually board a dog here, but we only do like one family at a time. But no one's boarding right now with us. So
Yeah.
and
Right.
we're very kind of selective. Like, we don't want our
Yeah.
house ruined, and so
Yeah.
we do a little bit of that, and we charge top dollar too. So
Yeah. Well, you're in that right community, I guess, right? People can.
Yeah.
I mean, people when they want to work with someone they trust, they're willing to pay top dollar, right?
Exactly. And there's a lot of dog owners.
Yeah.
And word gets around, so yeah.
Yeah,
we got great customers. I have both of us have a lot of good customers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's great. I mean, you obviously need healthy, good customers aside from, otherwise you'd just be, I guess, dealing with bullshit all the time. So
Exactly.
we just adopted our second pup, so I feel like I'm a dog walker these days. I'm just
Oh yeah. I mean,
take
that's
one,
how
then I
it
take the
started for
other.
me. It's being a pet owner and doing rescue too. Like, we used to be foster parents too, like
Oh, nice.
foster dogs for rescues and stuff, get them prepared for the outside world. And we started doing behavioral stuff. And I would
Yeah.
never consider myself an animal trainer or anything like that, but I've learned a lot. I've worked with a lot of animal trainers actually too. So you pick
Yeah.
up stuff, and it's just amazing. I love animals. So that's how it started for me, being a dog owner. I'm in the
Yeah.
animal care business. That's my main business. I also
Right.
do the Young Jerks, obviously,
Yeah.
as my hobby, and long-time hobby is really long-term hobby is like activism and writing
Yeah.
and doing shows. Like,
Yeah.
and I
You've
haven't been writing much lately.
You mean on the was it Substack? Is that?
I have a Substack now, but like for years I was known through Dick Boston. Like I wrote
Oh
for
yeah, yeah,
them
yeah,
a weekly
yeah,
print publication every single week for like 5 years, like all
yeah,
through the decrim, medical, legal, all that stuff. And
yeah,
even before that, I had like a blog.
yeah,
But I have a Substack now, yeah, like you
yeah,
said, but I don't write much for it. I just write when there's something that really
yeah.
gets me, or if I have more time, if I feel someday I might not walk so many dogs and I might write more again.
Right.
But I feel
Um,
like I could do it through the shows. That's what I found, like, my kind of goal was. It's easier for us to do our journalism and expose things through the Young Jerk show.
yeah,
And if it's like gets enough traction, then other journalists write it up. And
yeah,
that's what we've been doing a lot, like over the last year on
yeah.
the show, which is
Yeah, you've
exciting.
been killing it. You've been killing it lately. I kind of like the new mic, so I took a little bit of break from the Twitter and from doing this for quite a while. And then when I came back on, I was like, dude, Mike's on fire. He's killing it. I guess for me, I think you always have had such a tremendous voice in the community, but I feel like at least from all the things that I listened to in the first year or two that we were kind of getting to know each other, it was very agreeable. There really wasn't a lot of tension. It didn't seem to me also like there was a lot of pressure on maybe some of the guests, but like now you're on it. You're covering like some really intense topics. I know you recently had the commissioner on from the Cannabis Control Commission, Shannon O'Brien. That was a phenomenal interview. You didn't throw a lot of softball questions. It was challenging. You asked her a lot of,
Do you think, because people have criticized me and said that I totally
oh
mailed that in, was so easy on her, and I think I was pretty easy too, because I have, honestly developed a relationship with her,
yeah,
and I do like value her, like
yeah, no,
unlike the other commissioners that have come
right,
before her, and like she's the only one
yeah,
that calls us about this issue that we're talking about a lot, which
yeah.
is the worker issue, and she calls us all the time. So
I
I
mean, I
mean,
think, I think there's, I think there's a little bit of a balance there, right? So you're a huge voice for the Massachusetts community of cannabis. You want access. You want to ask questions, and I feel like almost initially you have to be. It's like a dance, right? You can't just
it is a
you
dance.
can't just
Yeah.
go in with heavy hitting questions, right? And be like, otherwise, I think the person and that guest might never show up again. So I think you have to kind of massage it in, and I don't think I don't think you went easy on her. I think for me, I think you were just kind of getting, um, not getting to know her, because clearly I think it seems like you have some time with her outside of the show. But I think you're gonna have to figure out when to ask the right questions. And I feel personally you gave her a chance to speak. It wasn't like yes or no questions. Like you gave her an opportunity to respond, and really that was up to her. She could have went in any direction. I think as a political person, I think she has to carefully, speak, what she, or at least be very forward thinking. She's got to think what she's going to say first. But I think inevitably, it was very, I don't know, I liked it, I enjoyed it. So
Well, thank
I
you.
think inevitably, what it comes down to is you're going to have her on again,
Oh yeah.
and
And
I
I
mean,
think she'll
obviously,
definitely, yeah, she'll
yeah,
come on again. I gotta
uh,
say too, when you've complimented me so much today, I'm glad that you're back, like huge.
yeah,
Like I was pushing you to be back. Like that's kind of like, I think how this interview happened is I was like, I'll come on the show if you come back.
yeah,
Like I'll do a show with you. Like come back. And like part of me too, like I think I've been wrong at times. And I think with a lot of the stuff that was going on, the tension, and I saw what you were going through, you
yeah.
were right on all that shit, man. And I was wrong, like in a lot of respects. So like,
Give me an
you know,
example.
I don't even want to get into it because I don't want to
You
say
know?
their names. You know what I mean? Like, but I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
you
yeah,
like
yeah,
bringing up that dude's name and just being like,
yeah,
and just kind of the direction things were going too. Like you were
yeah,
right in a lot of respects. Like,
yeah,
not that I don't want to dwell on it or but
yeah.
I just want to say, like,
I
I'm
mean,
glad you're back, and
thanks.
keep your head, like you call shit kind of right in the beginning. Like I don't agree with everything that you post and say,
Yeah,
but maybe I'm wrong again. Like so, like like
right.
I have respect for like what you were doing too, and like even how you continued with your show. Like there was, I know you had issues even with Kirk and that show, and like I haven't bashed on you over that. But you've come back, like you continue to do the grow shows, which I like, and that's what I like. I'm thinking I want Eric on my show to give me advice on growing, because now I'm growing and I need more help. You and Ed D'Souza, like you're my guys. I love what you're doing with the grows.
Thank you. The funny thing is about growing now is that, I mean, I'm in the grow room as we speak. I could, give you a little bit of a tour later on, but I've completely transformed this space, and inevitably I think I kind of transformed the hobby. Initially it was really more for content. Like that was kind of where I was going. I was new to growing, and as a lot of people were, in the last couple of years, as it's sort of become legal and a little bit more mainstream. Like people come to my house and they know that I do it. There's not like a huge like thing going on. And then I kept going in a direction where I was trying to perfect the time and the energy that it took, and inevitably, I have a pretty good automated system, and I'm growing some fucking fire cannabis. Like I really want to hook you up, because I feel today that I've only been doing this 3 years, and so by no means am I like a professional or even close to like a good grower. I'm basically just doing the best that I can, and each time that I'm growing, I know that I'm getting better and better just because the feedback that I'm receiving. So that's basically what I got in the pipe right now. So I had just harvested 6 plants. 2 of them were AK-47. I've grown that before, but 4 of them were Star Dog. So Star Dog is a new strain to me. I'm actually trying to change a little bit away from. I was doing a lot of the hazes, a lot of the sativa heavy hybrids, and I think I wanted just to get a sense of what I was missing. And I think that's the great thing about growing and cultivating some of these plants, is that you can get such a wide variety of the terpenes and the cannabinoids if you just grow over the spectrum. So I was just doing a little research, and you have to be careful about where you buy the seeds online, only because sometimes you can just get some shitty genetics. So the places that I've been getting my seeds from have really produced for me. So for someone who has as little experience as I do, I haven't killed any of them. So I've come close, but they've all bounced back, and inevitably, again, I'm not trying to grow for sale. I'm basically just growing for myself and then some of my friends. So anyway, I'm going to smoke this real quick, and then we're going to get into some convo.
I'm doing the same thing for the first time now too. I'm growing a few plants outdoors. I started late. They're small, but I got 4 of them, and I'll get something. I will get something out of them. It won't be the best, but it's like year 1. Next year I'm starting early. I'm looking forward to doing that next year too. Got good little setup now.
Where did you get your seeds from?
Where did I get
seeds from? Or are they clones? The seeds
I had a bunch of seeds. Number one, like it's so funny because like I wish I kept the ones I used to keep. I freaked out one like way back when it was still illegal, and I thought the cops were at the door. The cops were at the door, but they weren't at the door for us. So I like dumped them down the toilet. Oh, I'm so mad. But I have like a lot of those old seeds you just find, you know what I mean? Collect out of bags for years. So I have some of those. But I also have like a bunch of actually a Star Dog cross from a while back. This guy gave me a shitload of them, but I've had trouble popping them. Like I've heard that feedback on them too. So I thought I got one, but it doesn't seem like it's coming out. But I got this other Elmo lobster that was a free giveaway from for an activist, Kyle Correo, who passed away. He was a military guy, great activist. And his friends made this free strain. They passed out. I'm growing that. That one is like kicking butt. He's a friend of mine. So that's kind of exciting. It's like lobster and Elmo or something like that.
Did he pass surprisingly, you're saying, or was it an accident?
I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I don't know how to say it because I don't know if it's really been. It's sad. Yeah. It's one of the one of the tragedies we see a lot. Like the reason we do cannabis is to try to keep people off stuff, and so
there's a lot of like strange. I think you even commented on it. There's a lot of strange cannabis in the news lately. A lot of negative press, right? There was something regarding pregnant women and birth defects and things like that. And then what was the one you commented on? There was, I feel
I
like there
think
was a
that was
story.
Malika Marshall was pushing that one.
Yeah.
She's a doctor. She's like a
Yeah.
big TV doctor in Boston. She's like on one of these Boston, I don't know, Channel 4, I think, or maybe I don't know, Channel 5. I don't know which one. She's one of the TV doctors on the local news. And for years she's been anti-cannabis. She was so anti-cannabis that she campaigned against every one of our initiatives.
Oh
so that's the impartial person they have pushing propaganda on local news still. It's just it's kind of I just laugh. I'm like, Malika Marshall, you still have the anti-cannabis script. Unbelievable.
I'm gonna look her up. What news station is she on? Is she on video?
It's either
or is she
4 or
just
5 or either 4 or 5, like either CVB or WB, the channel 4, whatever that is.
I'll try to YouTube her.
Malika Marshall. And Malika, I think, is with a K. I think it's Malika, Malika Marshall.
Yeah.
But that's one of them. It's like ridiculous.
And
sometimes there should be anti-cannabis stories. Like I think on the labor front. Like the way that the worker issue, like there is a danger. I'm convinced of it at this point from hearing from so many workers. There is a labor issue and a risk that people can get sick.
Are we talking about the particles again?
And I think also like allergies or something. Like there's something going on. We don't even know what it is. Like that's a thing. Like it drives me crazy. Is it particle count? Is it an allergy? Is it something in the cannabis? Like some kind of pesticide? Like there's like different schools of thought, and we don't know, and the science isn't really being done to find out. So. I just know that there's an issue and it's getting some people sick at these places.
Yeah. It's an interesting point that you make. And, because I smoke and grow primarily 90% of my own cannabis, but, occasionally if I'm in between harvests, I like to just go to any dispensary. I usually go to Maine or any of the Massachusetts stores and just to kind of check out what they're selling and what the bud is. And it's funny how it always looks so different than mine. And I'm not saying like it's completely crystallized, but it's like denser, it's harder, it's more like, one of those like moon rock type things. Like it's interesting
drier.
That's flower. Yeah, it's drier.
It's what I don't want. It's exactly what you don't want. It's like it's just mostly what you don't want. Like when I go to Maine, it's like Maine's much closer to what you're growing. Like it's probably still not there in some respects because it's still commercially, but it's much closer. Like I can tell.
Can you see this?
No, I can't.
This is kind of like the no.
I've seen your pictures.
Some internet things.
Your cannabis looks really nice. Like as a home grower, you're kicking butt, man, and you're teaching people. I like it.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the recent stories
too. That's what I'm.
What you mean, the strains? Yeah. Well, it's just like if you were a wine connoisseur, you would go and try different bottles of wine, right? Even if you're into just reds, there's 100,000, different varieties of reds out there. So for me, I'm at least what I'm trying to do is just try to stick to this one online vendor that I'm using to buy the seeds, because if anything, I only have maybe 2 harvests per year. It takes me about 6 months to grow 6 to 8 plants and then harvest them and then cure them and then smoke them. So with that being said, I don't have a lot of time to fuck around if seeds are bad seeds or if they don't pop or if the yields are so low or if the plants are so weak that it just, they ended up just suffering. Like, I guess for me, genetics doesn't matter for a grower who only has so much space. I mean, I don't have a large canopy here and I can only grow 6 to 8 plants. There's nothing more than I can grow, which is why I do love the benefit of the outdoor in the summertime, because even though I was just harvesting 6, I still 4, outdoors. So that'll sort of carry me over. But you've had a couple interesting stories recently, and you mentioned a little bit, or you touched on it with the health issues for the workers. So tell me about at least the Lauren story that's been in the news as of the last few months.
Which story?
The worker who died.
Oh yeah, Lorna McMurray.
Yeah.
Basically she was 27 years old, worked at True Leaf in Holyoke, had a respiratory issue where she collapsed at work and was taken out by ambulance, and then Christmas came, and you know, like a lot of workers at this place, and like a lot of workers that we've heard from, she was one of those folks that started working there and never had any respiratory issues until she started working there, and she wasn't feeling well, and it was obvious. And they were putting her in conditions where it's very enclosed. You're talking small, like a smaller room than I'm in right now. My room's not that big here. You know what I'm saying? And there's like 10, 15 people, and they've got particles everywhere. You know, they're grinding cannabis. So
Trulieve is a public traded company, correct?
Correct.
So it's one of the
largest cannabis.
Yeah.
This is one of the top 2 cannabis companies in the world, basically.
Yeah.
Based in Florida. They were started by a woman, CEO. She's married to a politically connected guy who's right now in federal jail for corruption and bribery. So this is the type of players you're dealing with. They're connected to Ron DeSantis. They're also connected to the top Democrats in Florida. So like they own the state, both sides of the party. That's Trulieve. And they basically came to Massachusetts, and this worker collapsed. For Christmas, they gave her cannabis flower. She was a lifelong cannabis user, and she couldn't smoke it because her lungs were so bad because of the breathing issues. So it was like a torturous Christmas gift to give someone who had just collapsed. And then she collapsed again at work and died. And so, you know, we've been all over it. Her family called in, got a lot of her friends and family involved, her coworkers, and we're still covering the story. And you know, there's been so much revealed.
What's the latest? I mean, I know
the latest is truly Massachusetts. We finally got something is that they have been driven out of Massachusetts. Their reputation is so bad, they've cut bait, and they're out of Massachusetts. But there was supposed to be a big scientific, you know, investigation with the federal government with this NIOSH, which is like OSHA, but the scientists of the federal government were supposed to do a study on the workplace to determine if there were issues there and what the issues were. And that's been canceled. And that's curious. It seemed like Trulieve was just like, we're out of here this month. Like, and the study was just starting. Like the study was just about to start like next month. You know what I mean? And we were all talking about it. We had a lot of union activity and worker activity. Danny Carson, who's, you know, formed a workers group, a bunch of workers with MassCosh. We have a workers movement going on right now. And they like even had like a food truck outside of Trulieve, like for the employees to give them information about how to organize, how to be involved in the scientific federal government study that was coming in. And all of a sudden they just shut it down. So that's kind of the story on that. But at the same time, you know, we had so much stories and press that were out there, from the Boston Globe to High Times to Leafly. Leafly did a huge major.
Mike, before you move on to that, so can I ask you another question about that? So do you think then, or do you know if there's any other legal you know, ways that you can approach them, or since they left the state now it's kind of like up in the arms and that's kind of what
on the Lorna McMurray thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, there's several things that are going on. Number one is that the mom is suing. So we know that Laura, we know the law firm. I don't know why, like we haven't heard more news about that recently. I think this would be the time we'd start hearing info on it. But who knows? I know that, you know, several months ago they were investigating. They were talking to people. They had like investigators, and like, you know, it's funny because we talk about the difference, the workers like Danny Carson and other workers that we speak to, the difference between the lawsuit lawyers who are suing Trulieve, the thoroughness of their investigation, versus the CCC, who doesn't follow up, who doesn't seem to care, who plays like, and they still have an open that's the other thing that's funny about this. Trulieve is now leaving the state of Massachusetts. They're gone. And the Mass CCC still has, and it's been like almost 2 years now since Lorna died. They still have an open investigation, not even from Lorna's date of death, but before Lorna. So like we think that and we don't even know, like we think the investigation started when Lorna collapsed the first time. We know that it started before she had collapsed on, you know, the date that she finally passed.
Was that one of the questions you asked Commissioner O'Brien when she was on the show? Why the investigation hasn't been opened, or at least
I think we might have talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she she can only say so much or even know so much. Like it's
It's
so weird
opened.
how this whole
Yeah.
commission has been run. I
Yeah.
feel like even the commissioners, like even her, like I think she's actually taken a lot of heat because she's tried to ask questions and find like go with
Mm.
accountability. Like if you saw what happened right after we started exposing all this shit,
Yeah.
one of the first CCC meetings that they had, Shannon O'Brien brought out the executive director, who I really think is the one who he should be out of there. I
Oh,
want to see that guy
what's
gone.
his
Sean
name?
Collins. Sean
Yep.
Collins.
Sean Collins.
He's the
Yep.
executive director. He's a former political aide.
Yep.
He's been there the longest.
The
He's the one
longest.
who runs the show. These
Yep.
commissioners have come and gone. It's been a revolving door.
Yeah.
All five of the commissioners are really brand new. If you look at it, so here you go. You got this guy, and she, brought him out and said, "You got to answer some questions in public."
Yeah.
And I think it kind of saved his ass, actually. And that's what I like about O'Brien. O'Brien's like, no, 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 no. You got to do this in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't be hiding shit.
Yeah.
You can't be
And
ignoring shit. Like
and what
that's
did
the way
he?
I feel. Like O'Brien, she's run the U.S. The Massachusetts State Treasury.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was a state senator, state rep. She's been doing this shit for years. She's not
Yeah.
afraid to talk to people, to address concerns, to get shit done, to make sure things are done right. Like,
Mhm.
especially if you look into her history too, like Massachusetts, the state lottery was always kind of a hackorama. And she
Yeah.
didn't have those kind of scandals that the other guys had that they all got kicked out, basically, if you look back.
So
So
who brought Commissioner O'Brien in? How did she become the commissioner of the cannabis control?
this is interesting. And this is where like even I was kind of laughing at it, but like it was a treasurer, a female treasurer. So like you have a female treasurer putting another female treasurer in there. That's who it was. It was,
Yeah.
by statute, that seat was the treasurer decided. So that's
Gotcha.
Deborah Goldberg.
Okay. And are they close, Deborah and?
I'm guessing they must be. I'm
Yeah.
sure they are. I mean,
Right.
the first two probably, I guess, Massachusetts treasurers, right? I mean, I got to think they
Yeah.
are close.
Yeah. So Truly
And
leaves
she
the
took a lot
state.
of heat. O'Brien took heat
Yeah.
for that, and I even gave her
Yeah.
heat for that in the beginning. Like, but I'm not going to grill her over that. And some people probably would have liked me to, but she
Yeah.
already took all the heat for that. Like, she was on WCVB answering those questions. I feel like so.
Mhm.
For me, I'm not going after her for that, especially. And I think she makes a good point. Like when I have brought that up to her, in private or heard from her on it, and she's basically like, of course, like a treasurer, knows that someone who can do that job is probably qualified for this other job. I trust them. So sometimes the bias might be good. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. You need to get that.
no, I think it's a listener calling out my show or something. I don't know.
Oh,
It's like he thinks he's like I'm live on mine. I don't know.
Oh no. Do we want to bring
It's
somebody
funny.
in? I don't.
No,
I can
no.
post a link. No.
Is that this? It's a guy who calls in my show every time I'm live. So I think.
I gotcha. And so there's some other fraud cases that you've been putting on your show as well, and one of them was about the testing. You mind sharing some of that information?
Oh yeah. I mean, this testing issue has been another issue of just on so many levels. It's screwed up. If you look at cannabis in Massachusetts, there's legal adult use cannabis being sold on weed maps and Leafly and their their websites advertising that flower has 50% plus THC in it. Well, we all know that's false.
False.
But they're allowed to inflate it.
Yeah.
They're allowed to inflate it because the Mass Cannabis Control Commission and one person, Sean Collins, has interpreted the law in a ridiculous way and isn't going by what the Massachusetts medical DPH program did in the past. And we exposed that on our show, and it wasn't really myself exposing it. It was some of the testing company folks. And
so
independent
testing folks, or people that are connected
yes.
to the state. Yeah.
No, independent testing. Pro Verde Labs. The Chris Hadula came on. He was the main guy on this. But we also have, Jeff Rawson, he's a scientist, a nonprofit. He's basically consumer based. And he's been like, going to the CCC trying to get information on testing too, because they all know that there's an issue on this. And, it's just like they don't want to do anything. They've interpreted the law in a weird way and with loopholes to say you can inflate and you can bullshit it. And some of these companies don't want to do that. So the testing companies that don't want to do that, no one uses them, which sucks because they're the truthful ones.
Yeah.
So it's bullshit. And then beyond that, we also exposed another Truly fraud.
Wait, before you get on that one, I just want to ask you a question about it. So is the inflation of the THC percentage, is that like a safety concern, or is it just like false advertising? Like what's the angle
it's everything.
there?
It's fraudulent because it's like it's deceiving the consumer, number one. And number two, it's confusing because nobody knows how, like if you don't know how that was calculated, that number is meaningless. You know what I mean? Like it's comparing apples to oranges.
Right. So do you think consumers go to a dispensary and look for, or at least a part of the decision is THC percentage because they're thinking a greater high,
which is stupid anyway. I mean,
right.
This is ridiculous anyways.
Yeah.
It should be more about the flavor, the terpenes, the freshness, all that. Who grew it? Whether it was the top or bottom. I mean, that's the stuff I care about. But for some reason, THC percentage sells, and people are using it that way, and especially when it's 50%, and they're using it to the dumb people who are like, whatever. But still, it does. There are a lot of dumb people, I guess, out there. But again, it's fraudulent though.
Uneducated.
I think it hurts.
Yeah,
it's uneducated. But it also hurts business. Like I hear from a lot of the smaller businesses, whether they're growers, they're like, it's incentivizing me to go to shady testing companies. I don't want to go to them. I want to use this guy who I know is legit. I want to put out the real number, but my shit only says 20%.
Yeah.
Where these other guys have 50%. And my shit's like a micro grow. That's Ed D'Souza. This is the River Run Gardens. That's what I'm smoking. The only adult use I smoke in Mass. Because I trust those guys.
Where's River Run? I've heard of that before.
Newburyport.
Okay. Maybe I'll drive up there.
So like, those guys only test like 20% because they're going legit labs. Like it's not fair. And so some of the even retailers or stores will say, well, we can't give you your due value on that because it's only testing 20%. That's what they're up against.
Yeah.
So in the labs, it's like ProVerdi has to either cheat like everyone else and bullshit and inflate, or they're not going to get the business from the dispensaries.
Right.
And then it gets even worse than that. Like no one's evaluating this dispensaries for fraud. Go ahead.
So aside from the dispensaries, who evaluates the quality of the labs? So is that part of the CCC, or is there a government agency that, I mean, because that can't just be an independent person, right? Does the government regulate that?
Well, see, I think there are accreditations and things at certain levels. I don't even get into all that on the show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, so I don't want to speak on it. But there is somebody at the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, who is in charge of the testing program. And that person used to work for a testing company.
Who's that person?
Oh shit, I forgot his name. But I can tell you where he used to work. He used to work at a company called Steep Hill.
Okay.
And we said his name on the show too. He used to work at Steep Hill. You could look up his name, but he used to work at Steep Hill, and he used to test product for True Leaf. And True Leaf used to test product at a couple of companies like MCR Labs and some other companies, but they didn't like the test, so they all of a sudden switched over to these two other companies. One was Steep Hill Labs, and the other was this other company. I forget the name of them too, but it's all over the video if you watch the video.
Yeah,
it's something analytics. That company, the person that was testing the product was married to the head cultivator at True Leaf.
You're kidding.
So the law says that if you work at a cannabis dispensary and you're licensed, you have the badge, even if you're just a $15 an hour grower, you can't be a family member of someone that works at a test company, which I think is crazy. I mean, that's how can you? Yeah, that's the law.
Right.
They went well beyond it. They didn't just break the law. They did fraud. That's fraud. Yeah. You can't have the husband and wife testing each other's product at two different companies.
Yeah. So the gentleman that you were mentioning, the person that works for the CCC, is he the one that's supposed to be basically looking at that information and just making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Doesn't seem like he's doing a great job. If they're
I guess
married.
so.
I mean, it's
You know
not
what?
like
I
second
put up that
cousins.
show. I shared it with everybody. I haven't heard from anybody at the CCC on it.
Nobody.
One person. I'm not going to say who, but you can probably guess.
But what was the feedback from Commissioner O'Brien?
I told everyone to listen to it. That's pretty much what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that,
So the testing piece then is again, it's just going to be brushed under the rug, and we're just going to keep moving on.
Well, I think that they're starting to look at it. I mean, they've already had a subcommittee going on it.
Yeah.
But it just like, I don't know, man. Like everything takes so long, and when they do something, it's the wrong thing. Almost every friggin' time.
Yeah.
It's like they're worried about the wrong things all the time.
Do you watch any of the CCC broadcasts anymore? I feel like there may have been a meeting today. I think that may have been on the agenda.
Was. Yeah, today, yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you watch any
I
of that
didn't
stuff
even
live
watch
anymore?
It.
Yeah.
I do sometimes, but like it's just
It's dry.
sometimes I just can't. Sometimes I'll watch it a day later. I'll see if there's something on it I need to see. But unless they're really talking about the issues I care about, like
Yeah. So number one,
I know there's stuff going on. There's going to be social consumption going on right now, which is good.
Social consumption,
and they're going to be looking at the testing. They're looking at
equity thing. I think was on there.
Yeah, equity, which I think there's an issue, and they're also looking at like shelving. The slotting fees, the shelving fees that they're doing. Dispensaries are doing now. And equity is just a joke.
Yeah, I was going to say let's talk about that real quick. I mean, that was the majority of the interviews or people that I spoke with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
that was
joke.
actually you reaching out. Yeah. What do you think is a joke about it?
That doesn't go far enough. That's simple things that we could be doing.
How far does it even? How far does it?
It's all about capitalism. Capitalism. Like we're going to enrich 10 or 15 people of the right skin color and call that a win. Like that's what's going on here. Like folks that probably already have, like they're probably on second base. Let's put it that way, maybe third base. You know what I mean? Like economically, I'm talking economics. I'm not talking about what they've been through because of this. Because I have sympathy for people, and I think we just could do so much more with it. Like even the way it's set up in terms of like social impact, it's like. I don't know. I'm not buying it. Like social impact. How about like social impacts? Like let's start looking at some social impacts. Like we don't give out free cannabis to people who are poor. Like none of these corporations are encouraged. They're not allowed. It's not in the plans. There's nothing in the plans to give free medicine to patients. There's nothing there. Like what about that? What about no taxation for people who have been arrested for cannabis? You want to help the most people. Like, let's do real social equity that helps like hundreds of thousands of people instead of like 20 people.
Mike, can you hear me real quick?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mike, can you hear me? I'm sorry, there was a freeze.
I can hear you.
Wasn't there a recent about veterans? It was about maybe they no longer have to pay for their annual membership fee. What was that? But again, what is that? $150?
Yeah.
Like,
but it helps. It makes it easier for them.
It should be. That makes it easier, right? That's access. But then the cost of cannabis. I mean, it would be nice if they didn't have to pay taxes or something like that, right? Was that?
I would love that.
Brought up?
That's what I'm talking about. Like, right now we have adult use. There's another bill too that I want to talk about. There's a few bills, but the adult use bill, like right now, like I have a medical card, right? But I'm limited on where I could purchase. I can go to Maine. I can get the best cannabis in the world up there, but I have to drive it back, and that's illegal. I'll probably just do it anyways, but gas and time. Or I can go to a medical cannabis shop in Massachusetts and get ripped off pretty much shitty crap and only so many big company options.
Yep.
Not as many as the adult use. Adult use has so many more options now in terms of who's growing and companies. But if I go in there, I have to pay a tax, even with my card. Yeah. So there's going to be a new bill right now that gets rid of taxation on adult use shops if someone has a card. And I think that's a huge improvement. That's what we need right now.
Yeah.
Or if they're not going to go for that, like I want tax-free cannabis for anyone who's ever been arrested for cannabis, for anyone who served the country as a veteran. Like it should be like we should be doing that kind of social equity.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. For the consumer side, I think that makes total sense. Obviously, we're talking about a very small percentage of the population that's not going to really make a dent into their profits. So it doesn't.
Right.
I mean, again,
and they're going to die off eventually too. It's like a one-time dividend to people, and it's the people who actually suffered. Like you want to address root harm. We always hear about this root harm on people. And 3 to 5 times more Black people were arrested than white people and racial profiled. I know that happened, but there were a lot of like poor white people that were arrested too. And a lot of the poor Black people that were 3 to 5 more profiled and arrested aren't in a social equity program. And if they were, they got screwed. They couldn't get through. They're still waiting. They've spent 5 years. They're suing people to try to open, and they're not open. Like, or their partners stole the business. Like so much bad stuff has happened to people.
Yeah.
And they talk about expungement, right? Expungement, like expungement solves it. It's like I don't need expungement now. I think that's my arrest. I think already fell off the record. When I got arrested way back in the day, it cost me a career. That was like, the next job I was going to get was like $300,000. And I went to unemployable over one cannabis, over 1 gram of weed. Like, how much, like I probably lost $1 million. Like, honestly, like, so how do they repay that? And there's like, my story is nothing compared to a lot of folks, like going to jail, losing your kid, all that shit.
Yeah. So can I ask you, what happened there? So you were basically interviewing for another job, or you had something?
No, I had a job. I was well employed at a company making good money, but I was underpaid. Like basically, if I went, I was at a place making like 100 G's. If I was managing the amount of money I was at any of the other competitors, I would have been making 300 to 500 G's at that time. And so I was at the point where the competitor wanted me, and my boss left to another competitor. He wanted me. The guy who replaced him left to another company, and I had a bidding war for me. But because of licensing, because I had just been arrested, they didn't know. I couldn't take any of those jobs. I would have been getting paid. Yeah. So, it's that's the, way of the world sometimes, but.
Yeah. So, people trying to get into the cannabis space, in terms of equity. So, I mean, I think recently they were trying to also alter some of the what is the HCA is? Is that what it's called? HRA? What's the term for the
host
community host agreements?
Yes,
host
HCA.
Community agreement, HCAs. Where those necessarily don't. Those HCAs can also limit the participation. Correct.
And
they're trying. I mean, they also don't have to abide by some of the same rules that the state has voted on. Is that also correct?
On the HCAs?
Yeah, like in terms of like, priority periods, or like they don't local towns don't have to necessarily abide by some of those. I could be completely wrong, but I thought that was part of the case, where they're maybe right now trying to change some of those situations where HCAs
I think they're trying to incentivize them, because the city of town doesn't have to do anything that the state wants, basically. Do you know what I mean? So like the state, just because they've given you preferential treatment in the licensing, the big part of getting through is getting the city of town to agree to it. That includes a host community agreement, and that's like the biggest hurdle. So, I'd love to just see them get rid of those community agreements. I'd love to see them look at the state of Maine, the medical program up there, and say, how did they do this? How did they get 3,000 small businesses to open before the big cannabis opened and screwed everything up? Because in Massachusetts, to me, it's all screwed up with big cannabis. We don't have the 3,000 local caregivers. We need 3,000 guys like you, Eric, that can turn around and sell their product to patients or the dispensaries themselves, and get it tested and get it, you know what I mean? Like you should have like almost no, like the way that Maine does it, you can get licensed in 30 days to 6 months at the max. Massachusetts, 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And you have to pay for the rent the whole time.
Yeah, I was gonna say the difference in money.
All the
So
bills you have to pay for that 5 to 6 years. It's just like you have to be
yeah,
very, very rich, even if you're
right.
small time. And
So
so Maine, it's
in
not
Maine,
like that.
in Maine, do you also have to like procure a retail space while you're applying for the license then, or do you can just
Depends what
have
kind of license. If you're
right?
just a small grower, you may not even have to get licensed. And when you get to a certain level, you can work your way up.
Yeah,
You can start as a small grower in your house, get to a certain level, you get another license. You go to another level, then you get a retail. Then
yeah,
you might get, you know what I mean? Like you might get a manufacturer, like you add them on. And it's
yeah,
much simpler. And there's still a town approval and stuff and things sometimes, depending on, but it's much easier. They should
yeah.
look at Maine.
Is there any chance that they could reverse the damage that they've done in the last several
I don't
years?
think, I think they have to admit there's an issue.
Yeah,
Who in power in Massachusetts admitted that there's an issue?
yeah.
The only one so far I've seen is like Senator Michael Moore.
Mhm.
Even O'Brien, to a degree, I think it's kind of,
What does Michael Moore say?
O'Brien wants to fix it. O'Brien's
Yeah,
positive. I like O'Brien. I don't doubt her will. That's why I'm like, and her knack for getting things done, but I think it's like a formidable thing to try to overcome. This commission is really screwed up. But
yeah,
there's a state rep or state senator, Michael Moore, who has a bill. There's a few bills, another bill. He wants to
yeah.
do oversight of the Cannabis Control Commission, set up like an
Oh,
auditor, and
hmm,
basically like those guys, those scientists that want the information on the testing for the metrics program, they could easily get it through them instead
hmm.
of getting, oh, we don't know how to do it, we don't want to do it, we're not going to do it from the CCC in silence. Basically, the
Is that
CCC is set up
is
like a little fiefdom. Everyone has their little gang within the CCC, and they all fight
yeah,
each other. Like they
yeah,
have mediation against each other, and
hmm,
that's why nothing gets done. And that's like
yeah.
it's all ego trips. It's like Lord of the Flies over there.
So I mean, how do
And Sean
you
O'Brien is at the top.
right?
Sean, whatever his name is. Yeah, sorry.
Is there term limits for his position, or
No,
he's
he's
there?
the
No.
executive director unless they fire him.
What the commissioners have to fire him, or this,
I
or
guess
someone
so.
above?
I don't know
Yeah,
if he can be fired by them. I don't know how that even works.
yeah. That's so interesting.
Yeah. But,
Do you,
I would not be surprised if he does leave. Like, I think he's probably been a state employee for a while now because I know he's a state aide.
mhm,
So who knows? He's probably just like counting the days, like, when's that full pension vesting of the
right?
state that I can get the hell out of here and go work, in some bank or something.
No, he'll probably just end up being the next like Shailene Title, right? He'll just connect to another
No,
corporation
I
or
don't
or
think so. I don't
company
think he
and
wants to be a Shalit title.
no.
No.
What
Don't
do,
you
what do
think he wants something more than that?
possibly. You're right. Yeah.
Shalene
Um
basically turned down everything, I think. I mean, I know people don't like her. I know you probably don't like her. You've gone up against her. And I'm not saying you're wrong because, hey, man, you were right about other shit. Maybe you're right about this. But I think Shalene's like a true believer in what she does,
and
you know?
what is she doing? What is she
Social
believing in?
equity. Social equity.
So
And, opposing to big tobacco too and big alcohol and kind of pointing out what the next scams are going to be.
what makes you what makes you so sure that that's what she believes in? I mean, I'm just thinking about like her record, at least from the Control Commission. Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
I'm sorry, my computer is doing this funky thing.
That's working.
Um, sorry about that. Um, shit, lost my train of thought.
No, you were
Oh,
asking like what makes me
yeah,
think from her,
yeah. I'm
track
just
record.
exactly.
I would say like, just from knowing her back when we were fighting for legalization before it was on the ballot, there was a secret battle. Every time we did an initiative, right? There would be this group from out of state who would come in. We knew who they were, and they would start calling us locals because they had money and they were going to put something on the ballot and they wanted our support, right?
Wait, who's this group?
It was called no, not the Massachusetts, the Marijuana Policy Project, Rob Campia, who was funded by the MPP. was funded by a progressive insurance guy and
Hmm.
sometimes George Soros actually, but Soros mostly didn't do it as much, towards the one that we got to legal anyways. But it's this guy Rob Campia from MPP. He used to be with Normal. He started out with Normal. He got in a beef with them and he stole their mailing list, and that's how he started. He started calling their big donors and got like big donors, bigger than Normal.
Hmm.
And he started hanging out with like Bill Maher and the Hugh Hefner.
Hmm.
And Rob Campia ended up going down in a sex scandal. He's now affiliated with this other guy, a politician, and I think they're backed by Big Tobacco, really. And I think that Rob Campia thought when he made it the legalization initiatives that he passed in all these states, when he made them a certain way, that the money would go to his organization, the MPP, so that these companies, when they got licensed, they would fund him.
Is it?
But
Can I just stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Isn't that essentially what a lot of these people who have some political background working for these nonprofits are doing? I mean,
Well, that's why I think they kind of replaced them. It's funny because I
Yeah.
think the scheme was for Rob Campia and MPP, who were kind of sleazy. They were kind of just sleazy. They did fundraisers at Playboy Mansion. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
kind of like, and Rob had sex scandals. And Rob went down on the sex scandals, and they got really gross. Like some of the stuff you read about, like the stuff he did to like his people that worked at the organization. It's just like, So Rob is out, and I think that the social equity kind of replaced that and took over. But when we were trying to get the initiative on, Rob Campia didn't want home grow. No home grow. You and I would not be growing plants right now if Rob Campia got his way. We found out, some of us, and we started, like we did. Same thing on the medical. The same thing happened with the medical. It was actually a different group because Rob had got kicked out at that point, but it was his people. It's weird. They took over after Rob got kicked out, and then Rob took over again when he came back from the scandal. So it happened twice, and we basically, Shalene backed us. Shalene and the other guy, Chris Crane, they were some of the people who said, you know what? You're screwed. If you don't do the home grow, we're walking with, Bill Downing and Mike Craw, all the activist patients. And so we're not going to take this. And so they did the 6 to 12 plants, and they didn't want to do that. So that's why I kind of have initial trust on her.
Yeah. So can I ask you, so who's Chris Crane? You mentioned Chris Crane.
He's the guy who used to be with Students for Sensible Drug Policy way back. And he became, what do you call it? Forefront advisors, who were basically the consultants to a lot of these dispensaries when they were trying to open. And a lot of them, didn't pay. So they would offer them equity in their companies. And eventually they took over a big one, and then they sold it off. And Chris Crane, I believe, is pretty much out of the game now, but probably made a lot of money.
But you're saying he and Shailene Title initially were doing work that you appreciated. They were trying to provide some structure to this, to cannabis use and cannabis growing.
Well, no, I think originally when I knew them, they were activists. Like even before we did, any of these initiatives, they were around. Like Shalene started out, she was booking law enforcement against prohibition, who were some of the earliest supporters of cops that came out and said, I busted people my whole life for 25 years as a state trooper in New Jersey, this guy, Jack Cole. And I'm totally decided, and I was undercover, and I realized I liked the people I was busting more than I liked the freaking cops that, so he's like, the law is wrong, so like he came out, totally wants to legalize drugs. Shalene used to book Jack Cole all across the country because he's very popular. When you got a state trooper saying, I want to legalize weed and all drugs, he was very powerful. I mean, and Jack Cole and the lot, they were real cops. Like, they're not hippies. You know what I mean? Like, so she booked them. And that's how I knew Shalene way back. And Chris Crane was Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They were like a force. They were like they pretty much kicked off, and they were like one of the largest student groups. We had a student group at Suffolk University. I used to do MassCan. So we were working with a lot of these student groups locally, and he was the national organizer with them and like the president or whatever. And he smoked weed. Like, so when we would have parties, he would back then it was a much smaller scene. It wasn't dispensary people. There was no weed for sale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like High Times would come into town and we'd have our freedom rally and there'd be certain activists there and he would always be there. And I remember Chris Crane, how I remember him, like the first moment I'm like, oh, that's Chris Crane. Like, I like this dude. Is he taught us like from all the normal, he used to go to the normal parties, they do normal things at DC, like the conventions. He's like, you got to put the plastic thing on the smoke detectors because we're like the Ritz-Carlton. And we got like 100 people in the room smoking weed, blazing up like a fucking pile of weed on the table with like,
Nice.
all the High Times people, normal
Oh,
people.
yeah.
He's like, he's showing us
Open a
how to like,
briefcase.
he's showing us how to put the plastic bags over the smoke
Oh.
detectors so they don't go off. And
So
it
he knows how to party, Chris Crane.
Yeah. So that's how I remembered him. But yeah, I mean, obviously, eventually he got into Forefront, and that's a different ballgame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's when he stopped being an activist, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Shalene, I believe, was working for him for a short time as well as that law firm. But the thing, people like, I think a lot of people get caught up, and this is where I can't. Like, she worked for that law firm, and she worked for Chris Crane, or whatever at that point. But when she became a commissioner, she wrote down that she gave up everything, but she owned nothing in those. And I believe her. Like, I don't think that she's lying on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's where it gets, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's where the other side loses me on the criticize of Shalene. It's like, you know what? Like, you got to prove it. If you could prove that she didn't give up ownership of that shit, or she even had ownership, I don't even think she had ownership in any of that stuff, honestly. I just think that she was, especially knowing what I know about the industry at this point, a lot of folks like that level of Shalene, they got used. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? The white guys, the rich white guys still kept the money. Like, let's be honest. Like and to find out how little they actually got. Like, that's what, even when social equity is supposed to work, it's still, when you hear the stories where you hear like how, I'm like, that's all you got? Are you shitting me?
Yeah. You mean after a retail space is up and open? You mean? And
but even like the people that like, I'll give you an example, like my friend Kim Napoli, who worked for New England Treatment Access, like folks like that.
What happened with her?
She was like the best thing ever at that place. I went to war against that place. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and to how poorly they treated her. You know what I mean? Like and this is a black woman. This is like she's on a Shalene level, and you got her at New England Treatment Access being your front person. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she's trying to do good shit. Like, I honestly believe, and I believe that with Shalene too. I think that they have an opinion that they're doing good shit. Like, they're shaking people down to try to get them to do the right thing. Yeah. And I think sometimes they're successful at it. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're naive. I don't think Kim Napoli is. Maybe Shalene is. I don't know. It's not. I feel like it's not my place. But until someone really has evidence on it, I'm not gonna like call out someone like Shalene, who I've only seen good things from. Honestly, sometimes she pisses me off. I think the whole social equity thing kind of pisses me off, though. I feel like it doesn't go far enough. Where's social equity for workers? Where's social equity for all the people who were arrested? I want social equity for every person that was arrested, every person who lost a job, a child. You lost shit because you got arrested for weed. You should get something back. Yeah.
Amen.
I feel like social equity doesn't go far enough.
Yeah.
And it's been a failure. That's the way I feel. I feel it's too narrow.
Who's the social equity chair right now on the Cannabis Control Commission?
Was it Camargo?
Is that who it is?
Is that Camargo?
Is that the person that replaced Shailene, or is there two? There's been two since. I forget.
I don't know. No, I think that is the person that maybe replace her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always keep my ear to the grindstone. I'm always looking and listening about this equity piece. I think also because just from the people that I spent the time with on those couple of shows, Mar and Chief and those people, I guess I've grown to really like them and appreciate kind of their.
I like them a lot.
Their cause.
I support them. I just have a disagreement on how far it goes. And I'm not discounting their voices at all. Like I said, I could be wrong. I was wrong on a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel like. But I feel like they have a real point on it. Like it hasn't worked, and it has created negative clicks too. Like they're pointing out negative shit has come their way just because they're voicing their opinion.
Yeah.
That's not right. And I just don't feel like it's coming from Shalene, honestly. I feel like there are clicks in this though, which are negative.
So who do you think it's
And,
coming from then?
well, in this example, it's I think we know exactly who was there that day, like for Mar, right? And for Chief, like for that incident. Who was at the Heinz Convention Center giving those guys and his wife a hard time?
Yeah.
It was like
Who
three
were they?
individuals,
Who were
four
they again?
individuals,
What,
five
what were they?
individuals.
What
That's
was the
the gang.
what was the program name that they're associated with?
Big Hope Project.
Yeah, Big Hope Project.
So, like, to
What do you
me,
what do you know about those people? What's the mission of the Big Hope Project? Are they another just
they
advocacy agency?
they want to do social equity. They want to get
Yeah.
money from dispensaries. That's their shake.
Right.
Like they're getting money
Yeah.
from dispensaries, and it's like a feel good. The dispensary give them money, and they say, "Oh, we did a good thing."
Yeah.
So
Put me in your
that's the Big Hope
town.
Project.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of issue now. Is we're starting to come down to like, geez, are we going to have social equity gangs fighting from little drops from the dispensary? I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's not good. That's not the best way to do things.
Yeah. So, Mike, if we were to, put a map out there, how do we get to the next level? I mean, what's
Smaller is better.
Yeah.
Touch more people.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I think the medical cannabis program in Maine does so well. They allow 3,000 people to be licensed almost immediately. And they're helping more patients at a cheaper price, better product, better service, better quality, closer to them. This is not what we want, and less traffic. Like I mean, everything that we want is right there, and more jobs, and better jobs, and people own their jobs, and people could start working and then own a job. You know what I mean? Like you can move up easily because when it's a caregiver service and there's only 5 or 6 employees, and the owner works with you every day, this isn't rocket science. You know what I mean? Like so we should be doing that on that level with business wise, but Massachusetts, they think it's plutonium that has to be highly regulated. Only rich people, only billionaires know how to provide a safe weed. That's what they act like. It's like, no, they're actually the ones you don't want touching. That's a publicly traded companies. No, no, you want small organic growers, small farms, like 5 people. Like that's like what you're doing, Eric. If you could expand it a little bigger, you know what I mean? Like just be legal. Imagine if you could have 100 plants and it was like no overhead. What you could do with that? How many people you could help, and everybody was doing it, and you were competing on quality. Like, and again, the taxation too. Like, we got to reduce the tax, but we got to be smart about it too. Like if we could do that medical card thing I said, but I want to expand it even further. No taxation if you've ever been arrested for cannabis. Like we can't write people checks. Like I know people want to do reparations. I'm down for reparations, but this is so easy to do. You don't pay it. All you got to do is like, you get qualified in if they can do a Corey database, they can do a no taxation database. You know what I mean? If you've been arrested, come on.
I think it's a great point, and I would love to see that happen. What was the most recent interview you did? You did a show with Spy Fox or something? What was that?
Oh, my show?
Was that
American Spy Fox? Did you watch that one?
Yeah. I don't know, but I saw it come across my feed. I got the notification, but I was like, what is this? Is Mike doing? You're kind of coming outside of your little bubble there. What was that about?
I am. Well, I've done so many shows on True Leaf and patients and especially workers lately. Sometimes I just get like I can't do that all the time. I just need a break from it. Like I'm coming back on Sunday with a show with some workers again from True Leaf. But after True Leaf left, it was just kind of depressing, honestly, because like we had so much planned. And then it's just like, oh man, they're out of here. We kind of won, but it's still like the workers got fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're coming back with it, but it's like I watch a lot of YouTube, like like I have a lot of interests. My girlfriend, does a music show. She's been involved with rock radio at WAF and WBCN. She was a DJ.
What's her name?
Carmelita. And she did the local music show at AF for like 25, maybe even longer. She did it forever, decades. It was just a Sunday night show playing local music. So like,
R.I.P. WAF.
yeah. So she know like every local band. Do you know what I mean? Like we,
Yeah.
seen them and known them. And I used to book a lot of music too, especially the Freedom Rally. I used to book a lot of the bands and shit. And we have friends who musicians. And I've interviewed like I love music, especially like that 90s grunge music.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Like Kurt Cobain.
Put that in my veins.
Yeah, Soundgarden,
Yeah, those are my favorite, man. Those are my favorite bands.
And over the years, I've had some like weird shit happen with Courtney Love and Nirvana, and
what do you mean by weird shit happening? What are you talking about?
Well, number one, like I had a friend who had an incident with Courtney Love.
Where is she? Is she in California?
Yeah, and then I had an incident with Courtney Love, and then someone who called in my show had an incident with Courtney. It's like,
what was your
so
incident?
There's a lot of weird stuff like that, right?
What's your incident with Courtney Love?
Courtney Love actually, I'm going to tell you how weird, Eric.
Yeah,
she actually left her phone number on my blog. I used to have a blog, MikeCan.net, and she said some crazy shit back in the day about Britney. Remember Free Britney? She was like first. Yeah. She had this conspiracy theory going, so I posted all about it.
Yeah,
and then she like commented and was like, "Call me," and left her phone number.
Okay.
So some crazy shit happened then.
Did you call her?
Yeah, of course. But she got mad at me, and then she blasted me on social media, and I never talked to her. Like that was it. I did ask a question. Whoever answered the phone, it wasn't Courtney. So, and so I've also interviewed over the years this guy Tom Grant, who basically was the private detective that Courtney Love hired when Kurt Cobain went missing. He later proved, basically, in my opinion, that Courtney Love probably had something to do with the death of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
So she hired this private detective, and he basically got on tape this Rosemary Carroll, who was Courtney Love's attorney, on tape when Kurt was missing or right after he was missing. She basically said that Courtney was getting, was getting upset because Kurt was going to divorce her. And that Kurt Cobain was looking for a divorce attorney. And they found this, all this shit. It's on recordings. And so, like, it seems like Tom Grant pretty much proves it, but it will never get reopened. And this guy, American Spy Fox, has been following up on it. And he's amazing. He's got like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And he's like me. Like, you know how I'm on the True Leaf? I just drip and I tell the stories. He does the same thing. And I love it. Even if you don't believe in the Kurt Cobain thing, if you like Dave Grohl or you like the Foo Fighters, you like Nirvana, you're going to learn so much. And like, that's what I like about it. Like, he tells the stories. And he reads all the books. So I had him on the show the other night, and it was fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch your show, and then I'll
check him out. American Spy Fox.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So he is just is he an investigator, or is he?
Well, that's the thing. He it's awesome too, because I've been watching him for so long.
Yeah.
And he doesn't think he's the biggest thing in the world either. He's like, 50, these people have billions. I'm like, dude, but 50,000 for what you're doing is pretty damn good. Yeah. And he's just an average guy.
Yeah.
He's just an average music fan, and he's into it, and he has like sense.
Yeah.
And like, he just interviewed Ian, what the hell's his name? Halperin. He's like the guy who wrote the biggest book about the Kurt Cobain death.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Like, he's just like, this guy is really, it shows what you can do if you have an interest in something.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I'm always about on this shit. Like, I'm like, you know what? This is what I always do. Like, when I do a show, like if I'm doing something on patients or workers, it's because I'm interested in it and I have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And the Kurt Cobain thing's been haunting me forever because I love them. And I feel like he probably didn't commit suicide, man. There's something not right about that whole thing. And this guy's been doing a good job. And he doesn't go for like the cheap conspiracy theory stuff.
So what is he suspecting then, that there was a murderer or that he was just influenced to take his own life?
Well, you'd have to ask him, but like,
I
think he has a suspicion, but you can't really prove it 100%. But he can look at, like, he can document that Courtney is a criminal.
Yeah.
That Courtney is violent, and she's been violent to a lot of people. And it could show kind of like the suspicions.
The pattern.
And I think the bigger thing is he wants it to be reopened. Like, his big thing was that they ruled his death a suicide. If you look at all the facts, it should be inconclusive, if anything. So he's trying to get it to be changed to inconclusive on the suicide. But again, a couple of years ago, just recently, actually, like a year or two ago, the Seattle Police Department reopened it again because there's been so much info that's come out. But then they don't do anything. It's just
Yeah.
PR that they're just trying to spin it. And
Yeah.
there's so much info on that case. And someone, called in on the show that night and they were like, what about Chris Cornell? And I was just like, you know what, dude, it's not the same. Like this Kurt Cobain, maybe Chris Cornell, I don't know. But if you have a tape from Courtney's lawyer, from the wife's lawyer, saying, well, if you have the private detective hired by the wife's lawyer, you know what I mean? Like the person that hired all these people.
Yeah.
Like there's so much evidence is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And Chris Cornell, I mean, like, yeah, I follow some of his, I mean, he's got like one daughter who's in music. So yeah, I do, just because he was probably one of my favorite singers growing up. And that was obviously devastating news, but I don't know. I guess you never know, but his family seems very much missing him all the time. I mean, you can't fake the love that they're showing out there on their socials. So,
and I don't think they've gone around beating people up over the years.
No.
Like there's a woman that came on my show who was a listener to the show. Her daughters played on my show. She's kind of famous.
Yeah.
And she's a friend of ours.
A famous musician, or what are you saying?
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
Famous also for being a friend of Kurt Cobain and getting assaulted by Courtney Love.
Yeah.
Because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is what Courtney did. Anyone that got any kind of shine or jealousy, she would attack and beat up.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of instances that people are scared. Like they're scared of Courtney Love. You just go Courtney Love assault and you'll see the string of them.
Right.
And she's also she's also documented other stuff. Did you know Courtney Love, brags about this, that she sold herself to the Yokozuna, like she went into the white slavery trade. Do you know about that?
No.
Okay.
No.
She did it when she was younger. And then she also sold other girls, is what a lot of people speculate. That's another thing that American Spy Fox believes too.
Human trafficking? That she
sends other girls over there to the Sultans and the Yakuza. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm definitely going to check it out. That sounds, if anything, interesting, but also entertaining.
And there was another death. You know about Kristen Paff's death?
No.
Kristen Paff was the bassist of Hole. Who was younger, cuter, more talented than Courtney. She was also doing heroin. She was dating the other guy in the band, Eric. And then she was going to leave Hole. And she was also flirting with Kurt Cobain, apparently. And then her last trip, after she did this little tour to collect all her stuff from Seattle and move back home, she ended up ODing in a bathtub. And her last person she saw was Eric from Hole. So there's a lot of, like, he covers all that shit. Like, it's just the dead bodies up in Seattle around the Kurt Cobain thing. Yeah.
Wow, Courtney Love, she's the head of the mafia.
You know about Al Ducci too, right? Al Ducci, there's another one.
I don't know any of these names.
You don't know? You haven't seen any of those movies? Then, yeah, you gotta watch it. Al Ducci was a famous punk rock guitarist.
Yeah,
and I guess, or whatever. I don't even know. Like he's some kind of like infamous guy, right? In a certain scene that's like really almost kind of violent. Like and they have it in this documentary that sold a lot. And they basically, he's saying he's an alcoholic too, and he's saying that Courtney Love came to him to offer him money to kill Kurt Cobain.
Oh man!
Right before he died. And the documentary guy from like England comes in and he's like, I can't believe this. He goes and films the guy. And then like the next day, the guy gets run over by a train.
Holy shit.
Like that's the Kurt Cobain. Like I think that's in the Kurt and Courtney movie, the documentary.
Sounds like the Jeff Epstein.
And then Courtney's, this is the other thing. This is Hank Harrison. This is the book I bought. Hank Harrison is Courtney Love's father. He was friends with all the Grateful Dead. He used to live with Phil Lesh. He's a character. He lies a lot too. He's got a huge ego. He recently died. I talked to him on the phone for like 2 hours one night. America, Fox. He's also talked to him quite a bit. And his whole book right here is Love Kills.
Yeah. Oh.
So the father says Courtney did it. And this is a whole book about it and about Courtney when she was younger and how fucked up she was. And Courtney's mother said that Hank gave her acid when she was a young child and Hank denied it.
Yeah.
And Courtney's mother is a famous writer. like a feminist empowerment writer, you know, and like an heiress. Courtney Love was also rich from birth.
Oh,
So
this is
they're
all
like
news to
really
me. This is all fucking interesting shit. I don't know anything about
wicked
this
interesting.
stuff. Yeah.
And did you know that Courtney Love and Billy Corgan were together?
I think I knew that. Yes.
Yeah. So that was her boyfriend before Kurt, and her boyfriend after Kurt.
Yeah. Something suspicious here.
Who did Courtney's first album? Kurt. Who did the second album? Billy.
Yeah. Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's the type of shit that.
Yeah. All right,
want to
Mike,
go
so
down the American.
I want you to alternate your episodes now. I want it to be one on the
More
Massachusetts.
Courtney Love.
More Courtney Love. I want a whole series of Courtney Love. I would watch every minute of it and eat it up.
You gotta
Talk about
check out
passion, Mike. Man,
way
you're passionate about this.
Yeah, I love it. I just follow him. You know, like he gives me my fill.
All right.
I'll interview him every 6 months on it.
I'm gonna watch that right away. And Mike, we're gonna end up shortly ending here, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I had a pleasure talking with you this whole time. So, and thanks for encouraging me to get out of retirement, basically. So I can't say it was something that I missed coming on. So I'm really happy that you kind of pulled me back into this direction. So hope I'll keep
doing
going.
it, man.
Thanks, brother.
I think you're good at it. Yeah, you got a good thing going. Keep going.
Thanks, Mike. All right, Mike. I'm gonna say peace, but let's do this again. Keep up the good work. You're doing an amazing job. I love watching it, and keep it up, buddy.
Thank you, Eric.
I'll talk to you soon.
You too.
Bye.